The ninth narcissistic technique is intermittent reinforcement. So I'm a psychologist by trade, although I'm an experimental psychologist, not a clinical psychologist. So I wouldn't sit down with people and discuss their problems. I'm not qualified to do that in a clinical setting. However, I have studied cognitive psychology, and that is the study of the mind, essentially. So we might cover topics like problem solving, memory, perception, and I think that's what gives me a unique perspective on narcissism, because I can speak to those mental processes that cause narcissism. But prior to cognitive psychology, which came around in mid-50s, the initial cognitive studies were done. Then heading into the late 50s and early 60s, things started to really pick up. But prior to that, there was experimental psychology was almost all behaviorism. And in that, it was the traditional studies you think of with rats, pressing a lever and getting food. And in one of those studies, what they found was an intermittent reinforcement schedule will provide the most bar presses by the rat. So, what is an intermittent reinforcement schedule? In some studies, when the rat pressed on the bar, it would be in correspondence, the reinforcement or the reward, the food pellet, would come out after a certain number of presses. So it could be 1-to-1, and they get one every time. It could be 2-to-1, it could be 10-to-1, and they'd have to keep pressing the bar to get them. If there was a regular schedule of reinforcement, the rat would eventually stop trying to get the reward. But a really interesting finding happened when there was an intermittent or unpredictable reinforcement schedule. When the rat pressed on the bar, and it would be variable when the pellet would come out. So sometimes one press would get it out, and sometimes it would take 15 presses to get it out. And then the next time it might take 2 presses to get it out. And what they found was the bar pressing became its own reinforcement. So the rat eventually in this intermittent reinforcement schedule wouldn't even care about the food pellets. Just try to get as many food pellets as possible and then ignore them and keep pressing the bar rather than trying to get the reward. This is a really interesting finding because, biologically, pressing a bar doesn't make any difference to the rat whatsoever. But somehow, the intermittent reinforcement schedule got that to work, got them to press the bar. They would press the bar so often that they would actually starve to death while pressing that bar. So this is a really troubling finding. I mean, eventually they stopped trying to kill the rats. But we actually suffer from intermittent reinforcement schedule behaviors. So how does the narcissist deploy this against us? The narcissist always starts off, and we'll go over this later in the stages of Narcissism series, but they always start off in a new relationship with love bombing. And in love bombing, they'll tell you all these wonderful things about you and how great you are, and they'll do some future faking and get you into that relationship. And it's a roller coaster of joy in love bombing. The victim feels really loved and cared for and valued, and they're going to, if they fall for it, they're going to hit the gas pedal and drive forward right into disaster. Because then the narcissist moves on to the devaluing stage and they start treating that person poorly. And what happens is the victim will long for the time that they were love bombed, and they'll start to get disheartened with the relationship. And the narcissist who perceives that will say to themselves, I'm going too far. I better bring back a little bit of love bombing. I'll throw back at them that they're actually a really great person, and I love being with them, and I love them. So they'll give a little bit of the love bombing back again so that they reel the victim back into their web. And once the victim has been satisfied, okay, yeah, we're back where we need to be, then they're going to turn back to the devaluing stage. They might go to the discard stage where they eschew the relationship and push that person away, or they'll, or that might take a long time to get there, but eventually it will get back to the discard. And then the narcissist, who still isn't done with the victim, will come back to them and do what's called hoovering to, pretend that this whole thing of the breakup was just a big old misunderstanding, and that they actually want to have the victim back in their life, and they never meant any of the things that they did to abuse their victim. And if a person is successfully hoovered back into a relationship with the narcissist, they're going to find that every time they get back together with this person, they're going to get back into the devaluing stage a lot faster. That's the intermittent schedule. Doing the love bombing at first, then giving little love bombing episodes to bring the person back in after some devaluing has happened. It's unpredictable when this is going to happen. You don't know when the love bombing snippets are going to come back into your life. And so you become hooked on that person, and they get you into a codependent relationship so much faster every time they do it. What you need to do with an intermittent schedule is realize that a person that would be willing to abuse you is not worth keeping around. That person's love bombing that they're doing to you is just a trick to get you to come back in, and so they can keep doing the devaluing to you. Because if they go too far and don't allow that intermittent schedule of reinforcement to come back, well, they're going to lose you. You're going to walk. You need those times to come back to them. But again, if somebody's abusing you, they do not love you. They do not care about you. They don't want you to achieve your goals. They don't think you're a good person. They are only using you. They do not love you. And so recognize that. If you see yourself falling into an intermittent reinforcement schedule because things go from abuse to kindness, recognize that the kindness is a fake, and you're not dealing with somebody who has that in their heart. They're only pretending, which is lying to you. So beware of the intermittent reinforcement schedule. We are, just like the rats, vulnerable to that, and it does happen, trust me. So, I hope that helped, and I'll see you next time.